Hello everyone, this is Lisa Walbord with LiveWell Colorado, and I will be your host and moderator for today's webinar. I have a few housekeeping items to cover before we get started. First, we will be recording this webinar, and it will be available beginning tomorrow morning on LiveWell Colorado's website. To access this recording and any of the past recordings in this webinar series, simply visit livewellcolorado.org, visit the toolbox, and select Webinars in the toolbox menu. We'll also be sending a link to that, so if you forget what I just said, you'll still be able to find it. We'll also have some time for Q&A at the end of the webinar. If possible, please let us know who you want your question directed to when you ask it. To ask a question, you can simply type it in the Questions tab on your on-screen control panel. And with that, I'm going to start our today's webinar on how the state of Colorado is supporting Farm to School and why it matters to you. The objectives for today's webinar are to learn how the state of Colorado supports Farm to School activities and to learn where to access information and resources from state partners. We have a pretty full agenda and a lot of incredible speakers to talk with you today, so we'll be moving pretty fast and encourage you to reach out to us afterwards with additional questions. So a quick introduction of today's presenters. I'm really humbled to be presenting with such an incredible group of leaders in Colorado Farm to School. All of us will be referencing a number of online resources, and we'll send a compilation of these out to everyone who registered and or received an invitation to this call. So you don't need to worry about capturing all those. We will get them to you. So with us today includes myself, Andy Nowak from Colorado Farm to School Task Force, Cynthia Torres, who's representing the Colorado Food System Advisory Council, Jane Brand, who's representing the Colorado Department of Education, that also happens to be on both that task force and the Advisory Council, Wendy White, who's representing the Colorado Department of Agriculture, Susan Motika, who's with the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, Lynn Kathleen, who is with the Spark Policy Institute, and Wendy Peters-Muschetti with WPM Consulting. And all of these incredible people wear multiple hats and work together very closely, which is, I think, one of the exciting things about the progress we're making in Farm to School in Colorado. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Lynn Kathleen.
Thank you, Lisa. Well, today I'm going to get a chance to tell people about the Colorado Farm to School project that is a 3-year funded project through the Colorado Department of Agriculture. And we are, as if you've joined our webinars before, you know that we are the ones with LiveWell that are putting on these webinars. But Colorado Farm to School has a lot more than just the webinar series. And I just want to give you a flavor of some of the key things that you will find when you go to our website. The website link will be showing up several different places in this PowerPoint presentation, so you won't have any trouble finding it. Some of the types of things we have for schools include, and you're going to hear more about this from LiveWell because we do partner in many different ways. We have the Colorado Farm to School Primer, which is an excellent resource for communities that are starting out and exploring, trying to get their community to understand what farm to school is, really understanding what the potential is in marketing to your producers, bringing fresh food in. It's a wealth of information, and it's beautifully illustrated. We also have a food procurement in Colorado resource that has been developed, and it tells all about and gives the history of what procurement is, and you'll hear more about that. We have on our website on how-to, what we call how-to resources, and that really is this wonderful linked guide that will give you access to just about everything you can think of. Whatever your question is about farm to school, whatever your need is, whether it's community gardens or tasting foods with your students, you will have links to resources through this guide. We also have a one-pager, which is really succinct and lovely about how do you even find and get to know your farmers. And that's such an important component because Farm to School ultimately is about those personal connections, and it's really about community and really building up that local connection between the school and the producers. We also have a series of case studies, and we have 10 currently, and we are going to be producing more this year, so look for our existing case studies as well as go and check us out each month this year, and you will see more. We have farm-to-school curriculums that you can look at, really important ways to try and integrate food systems as well as farm-to-school in particular into your classroom, into existing courses. There's fun modules, and you will be excited to see what you can do. And then finally, we have Choose Your Own Farm-to-School Adventure, which is one of the webinars we put on earlier this year, and it's a review tool for food service directors to use as they are putting together their plans for doing farm-to-school. Of course, we have our webinars, and here all I'm doing is just listing the 5 webinars that we have put on so far. You will see later at the end of this presentation the series of webinars that are upcoming in 2012. We also have resources for producers. Many of these are links to existing resources out there that you're going to hear about. One of them in particular is Colorado Market Maker, which again was a webinar that we did. It's a tremendous resource for both schools and for producers to find each other. There's also a tremendous new website called the Colorado Farm to Market. And this website has resources and guidance on how to sell in direct markets. And this includes farm-to-school markets. It's a really important resource for producers. And then we have a series of different types of documents and resources on crop extension, food distribution, and food safety, and a number of other links. I want to point out that we have a couple of open surveys right now. 2 of them are really trying to get at identifying what's happening that we are not familiar with, and it would be really good for us to build those local connections. One is our producer survey. So if you are a producer, or if you know you have producers in the area who are selling to schools or would be interested in selling to schools, please send them to this. It's a quick survey online. And then the other one is that we are very interested in looking at our options and opportunities in 2012 to bring farm-to-school efforts into your community. And so this is our outreach effort that we're doing in conjunction with the Farm-to-School Task Force, which you will be hearing from shortly. And so if you are interested in seeing if you can benefit as a community from in-person outreach from our groups, please take a look at this outreach survey and fill it out. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andy Nowak.
Good afternoon. On your screen, you're seeing the soon-to-be new Colorado Farm to School logo. And when the new information hub comes up online, you're going to see this logo throughout that website. So where did the Farm to School Task Force come from? In 2010, the Colorado State Legislature passed Senate Bill 81, Farm to School Healthy Kids Act. The act created the Farm to School Task Force and charged the task force with 2 major goals. 1, to increase the use of local farm and ranch products in school food service programs to improve child nutrition, and 2, strengthen the local and regional agricultural economies. Let's look a little bit deeper and how the Farm to School Task Force is working. First, we're looking at creating or expanding farm to school pilot programs. Second, we're identifying training programs for farmers and ranchers that provide guidance on the many aspects of farm to school, including marketing, food safety, liability, contracting, and other associated activities. And I will expand on these, both of these programs shortly. Third, we're providing assistance to school food service directors to establish the internal processes to use all this locally food that is coming into the schools raw, whole, and unaltered. Fourth, we're going to be helping school districts on what kind of facility improvements and equipment that they need for their school kitchens so they can handle this fresh produce. And fifth, we want to be a source of identifying farm-to-school grants and other funding sources so that school districts can get that much-needed help to launch these programs. On the Farm to School Task Force, there are 13 sitting members of the task force, several of which I'm sitting in the room with right now. We represent 4 major groups. We have food service directors, state agencies, industry representatives, and then parent groups represented on the task force. When we first started meeting as a task force, we wanted to come up with our long-term vision on where we were going to go in the next couple of years. So we constructed this roadmap that's on your screen now. Of course, I'm not going to go over this roadmap because it is very detailed, but this roadmap is helping the task force achieve Farm to School in Colorado through a collaborative, sustainable implementation strategy. And we refer to this roadmap at every one of our meetings. As we were constructing this roadmap, we came up with 4 major gaps in the Farm to School work in Colorado. I'm going to provide an update on 2 of these areas, funding for school facilities and pilots and evaluation. And then a little bit later in this webinar, one of my task force members, Susan Matika from CDPHE, will give us an update on the policy and regulatory reform and then the information hub. So one of the biggest challenges for schools in the state of Colorado is funding for school facilities. Many of the kitchens in schools are old. They were designed not for fresh food, and so there needs to be improvements. So the task force has created a Farm to School grant template which provides boilerplate language and optional language for districts to use in their grant applications for kitchen and facility equipment. The template identifies and describes equipment and provides a list of supporting references to justify the need for this new equipment. In addition to the template, we have identified and will continue to track funding opportunities, including public, foundation, and private grants, with a description of the funding opportunity, award levels, deadline date, and a link to the application. We see this template being a huge tool for small and medium-sized school districts that do not have grant writers available to them, and even larger school districts with grant writers that perhaps have never written a grant for school equipment before. This template will be found on the Information Hub when it comes online in the short term. The second activity of the task force is our pilot programs and then our now new evaluation program. The task force has been very involved in working with and supporting Farm to School pilot projects around the state. One such pilot project that is getting a lot of attention is the construction of food hubs. For many areas in Colorado, food hubs are an infrastructure needed to create substantial and sustainable Farm to School efforts. Food hubs provide a variety of services and are customized to the particular services needed in any given area. These types of services could include the aggregation of local products at one facility. The food hub can address the transportation and distribution needs between farms and schools, provide minimal processing, such as washing, cutting, and bagging of local produce, and even extend the use of local produce through freezing, perhaps even canning and drying of produce. The task force is also supporting conferences around the state and other outreach programs. As a task force, we are traveling all over the state, holding our quarterly meetings in different locations around the state, and we are convening conferences to support the development of Farm to School. We've had a very successful conference in Durango in November that brought 8 food service directors together to meet with 24 farmers from the area to talk about Farm to School. Last week, we had our second annual Connecting Local Farms and Schools conference that was produced by Real Food Colorado, where over 200 food service directors, producers, state agencies all gathered to hear about the latest developments of Farm to School. And we're beginning to launch some regional convenings and other outreach programs across the state. So as you can see, the Farm to School Task Force is putting on a lot of miles across our state. My last slide is just to remind us why we're doing all this traveling and giving our time for this. Farm to School is all about the students. And as parents, I'm a parent of students in Denver Public Schools. It's important that we understand what Farm to School means to our children so that they can support healthy living conditions for the kids and future healthy eating habits as they grow and mature. I am now going to turn it back to Lisa.
Thank you very much, Andy, and we really appreciate all that Colorado Farm to School is doing and look forward to hearing more later in the presentation. Right now we're going to switch to another state organization, the Colorado Food Systems Advisory Council, with Cynthia Torres. Cindy.
Can everybody hear me?
Maybe get a little bit louder if you can.
Okay, how is this?
Perfect, thank you.
All right. My name is Cynthia Torres. I'm the director of the Colorado Farmers Market Association, and we were appointed to the Colorado Food Systems Advisory Council by the governor about a year and a half or so ago. And I'm just going to take you through a few slides talking about the Colorado Food System Advisory Council, what we do, and who's doing it. The Colorado Food System Advisory Council was established in 2010 by Senate Bill 10106. With a lot of help from LiveWell Colorado pushing that bill through, so we're grateful for LiveWell for their contribution to the development of our council. We have 13 members. We are required to meet at least quarterly, but we do meet more often in our subcommittee, with our subcommittee groups and our subcommittee work. We have submitted 2 reports already to the General Assembly. So we're grateful for our staff to help us compile a lot of relevant information to get that out to folks who can hopefully benefit from it. We have a lot of folks from all over the food system on our council, all representing or all either appointed by the governor or appointed by the state agencies that have seats on the council. Next slide. Who are we? Well, there are 13 of us from, you'll see a wide variety of state agencies and statewide organizations, nonprofits, for-profits, and the public sector. We have lots of really interesting conversations all about what's going on. I think we've spent the first year working together, trying to figure out what everybody does, who does what, how they do it, and their contributions to the food system. We have 2 staff members from WPM Consulting who help us compile all of our information, organize our meetings, and help get the information that comes from our conversations out to the community, and from the community back to us on the council. Next slide. We were created to foster a healthy food supply available to all Colorado residents while enhancing the state's agricultural and natural resources, encouraging economic growth, expanding the viability of agriculture, and improving the health of our communities and residents. Quite a broad task there. Lots of different sectors involved in our mission. So the whole purpose of our council is to look to see if there are anything that we can do, either program or policy environments to bring all these sectors together to make more of a systems type change, to improve opportunities for getting involved in the local food system, like the farm to school movement. Next slide, please. We do have one of our subcommittees. We have 2 subcommittees on our council, or actually 3 subcommittees. One is the Access to Healthy Food Subcommittee, one is the Communication Committee, and the third is our Economic Development Subcommittee. Our Economic Development Subcommittee probably has the most relevance to the conversation here today about farm to school. We're looking at different ways to improve economic opportunities to develop food businesses in Colorado. And a big part of that is looking at finding opportunities or looking at the barriers for farmers or producers to get into the farm to school market system. We've had a variety of different opportunities to reach out and try to get some feedback from our Colorado community to try to figure out what the opportunities are and what the barriers are to getting into some of those opportunities. We started off with a summer tour and listening session, so we went on a field trip pretty much on large buses to a variety of different communities around the state of Colorado. to listen to farmers market managers, producers, food policy councils at the local level and regional level, and local government agencies to try to figure out what they were doing or what they wanted to do and how could we help, either through our own organizations internally or collectively as a council. We had a summit in Pueblo this past December, where we invited our ag support organizations and producers to gather to talk about some of the things that they would like to see happen in order for them to increase their market opportunities for some of those direct marketing opportunities. We will be attending the Ag Forum in February 2012 and presenting on the different things that we've heard on the summer tour and the Pueblo Summit to try to get more people invested in that conversation and try to maximize the different venues to help get the word out about what our communities are wanting from not only our organizations but also from the state of Colorado. We have an intention to continue those listening sessions through taking the council on the road or economic development subcommittee on the road for a variety of different events in 2012. We're looking at different ag events like the Colorado Farmers Market Association annual meeting. We're looking at the conventions like Rocky Mountain Farmers Union Convention, the Ag Forum. So we're looking at a variety of different ways. We're open to suggestions. If there is something that's happening in your community that you would like to invite us to, feel free to give us an email and let us know what's going on, so we can send some folks out to try to figure out what we can do to help you. If we go to the next slide. If you're looking for any additional information about our council, here are two websites that you can click on, or you can access our council and what we're doing. Our reports, our second report, and the summary from our Economic Development Forum in Pueblo will be loaded onto the Colorado Food Systems Advisory Council website for your review. Feel free to take a look at that, add anything. If you have any additions or if you have any questions about what took place or what our intentions are, please give us, send us an email via our staff. Is that correct? Staff? Okay. Via staff at WPM Consulting. Or so I think I might be out of time, but if you have any questions, please write them in your little chat box and send them along, and we'll be happy to answer some questions at the end of the conference.
Great. Thank you very much, Cindy. And there's a lot of great stuff going on with the Food Systems Advisory Council. They're taking, as Cindy indicated, a very broad look that can influence how we're able to have more fresh foods in Colorado, so a key piece of the overall puzzle in terms of having the supply that we need. I do encourage you to look out at their website. While she didn't have any pictures in here, there's some fabulous photos that were actually taken by Cindy, who is an amazing photographer, that show, kind of illustrate that tour that they took. While it might have sounded like, oh, a boondoggle and a bus trip around the state, it was anything but, as they were working through every minute that they were on the bus trip with, I believe, some rather frightening turns around some steep corners and pathways around our state. So I do encourage you to check that out. And with that, I want to hand it over to Jane Brands with the Department of Education.
Thank you, Lisa. I would like to talk for a few minutes about what we do at the CDE, Office of School Nutrition, and how we're assisting in the advancement of farm-to-school efforts in the state. The Office of School Nutrition at the Department of Education administers the USDA Child Nutrition programs in school districts and charter schools to promote the health and well-being of children. On my staff, I have 9 consultants. One of those consultants is a principal consultant who oversees the financial responsibilities of our office, such as reimbursement to school districts for meals and snacks provided to their students. The consultant's main responsibility is to monitor school districts' compliance to federal and state guidelines and regulations. We have 6 registered dietitians on staff, to promote healthy eating and encourage more fresh fruits and vegetables in the school meal program. One consultant that I recently hired will act as the farm-to-school liaison for our office. This staff member will serve as a point of contact for districts and to provide technical assistance in this area. Our hope is to definitely increase assistance to districts in the farm-to-school effort. Also, another consultant on my staff specializes in procurement. There are many federal and state regulations pertaining to procurement, and often school food service directors have questions and need assistance. In fact, just last Friday, we conducted a Farm-to-School Purchasing 101 training at the Connecting Local Farms and Schools Conference. As a result of the conference, we hope to have a farm-to-school bid template available for school food service directors to use. One example of the training and technical assistance that we provide is Produce Safety University. 3 staff members have successfully completed Produce Safety University, a week-long training developed by the USDA. This produce safety training was offered at our last summer's workshop this past June. And as Lisa mentioned, I serve on the statewide Farm-to-School Task Force and Colorado Food Systems Advisory Council. As I mentioned, the main focus of the CDE, Office of School Nutrition, is to interpret and enforce federal and state regulations in school meal programs, which you can see the list of programs on this slide. My staff assists the integration of farm-to-school into all school meal programs in ways that satisfy federal and state regulations. One example of this is geographical preference, where school districts may apply a geographic preference when procuring unprocessed, locally grown, or locally raised agricultural products. We recently assisted the Farm-to-School Task Force Policy Work Group in the development of 2 Q&As regarding geographical preference. And on a regular basis, we report on Colorado farm-to-school activity to the USDA Regional Office. For example, the February report will include the recent Connecting Local Farms to Schools conference. As you can see by my last slide, the impact of the school meal programs in the state. I would like to point out that almost 400,000 school lunches are served daily, which equates to 65 million lunches in one school year. Child nutrition programs' annual economic impact in Colorado is $238 million. And as to summarize what we are doing to help you with the farm-to-school efforts, the CDE, Office of School Nutrition, is providing training and technical assistance to school districts, sharing resources across the state with districts and schools, and participating on the Farm-to-School Task Force and Food Systems Advisory Council.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jane. You play an important and crucial link in this work, so we are thrilled to have you be such an active part of all this work. Next up, we have Wendy White from the Department of Agriculture.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm really excited to be here to talk about some of the programs the Colorado Department of Agriculture offers to help with farm-to-school efforts. And I do serve as the Colorado Department of Agriculture representative on the Farm-to-School Task Force. The primary program I'd like to talk about today is Colorado Proud, and it's been around since 1999. And it's basically a free marketing program that helps consumers, restaurants, schools, and retailers identify and purchase Colorado food and agricultural products. So we've really helped promote this program and the logo to consumers and encouraging them to buy local when they can. And this has also gone into the farm-to-school arena as well, and we encourage schools using local ingredients in their menus to participate in the program. And we're educating consumers on the logo and encouraging them to buy local, and we're really proud to say that right now 76% of Coloradans are very or somewhat familiar with the logo, and 84% indicate that they're buying at least some Colorado products. So we really feel Colorado Proud is making headway in encouraging consumers to buy local. As part of Colorado Proud School Meal Day for the Colorado Proud, we've hosted Colorado Proud School Meal Day for about the past 8 years. And in recent years, we've had 200 schools participate and reaching about 60,000 students. And this is something that we try to help organize and encourage schools to incorporate local ingredients. The 2012 event will be on September 12th, and we encourage schools to have chefs come and do demos, farmers give presentations. We help coordinate those events and activities. We provide free promotional materials with the Colorado Proud logo to identify local ingredients in their menus and at their schools that day. So it's really an exciting event that we can help with the farm to school effort. Our next resource is called Colorado Market Maker, and it was mentioned earlier in the webinar at the beginning, but this is really what we hope to become the one-stop shop for finding local products and connecting consumers with producers. And a recent addition to this has been the ability to allow schools to list profiles on Colorado Market Maker as buyers, so we can really start to connect schools with the producers in the state. And the last webinar that we hosted with LiveWell Colorado and Colorado Farm to School was specifically about Colorado Market Maker and how to develop a profile and how to use the tool. So if you're really interested in learning more about Colorado Market Maker and how you can use it, I encourage you to look at the last webinar, which is on the coloradofarmtoschool.org website. But we really think this is going to be a great addition for farm to school in the state. And the last thing I wanted to mention is the Colorado Farm Fresh Directory. This publication has been around for about 28 years. It's something the Colorado Department of Agriculture is really excited to print and distribute every year. We print about 100,000 copies and distribute them through visitor centers, welcome centers, chambers of commerce. And it lists farmers markets across the state, farms and ranches selling direct to the public, community-supported agriculture operations, roadside stands, and a variety of other farms and ranches that we hope can also be used by schools. The 2012 edition will be available at the end of May at our coloradoagriculture.com website.
Thank you very much, Wendy. It's another exciting partner from a state perspective, so great group again around the table. One thing I want to call out is the Colorado Proud School Meal Day. This past year we did see an increase in it, and I know that that was the first of the webinars that we all hosted together, was kicking that off last summer, and I suspect we'll be doing something similar again this year with some ways to help promote that and kind of raise it up to yet another high level of standard. So thank you for that. Next up we have Susan Motika from the Department of Public Health and Environment.
Thanks, Lisa. I think that I'm the fourth member of the Farm to School Task Force. I represent the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment on the Farm to School Task Force, and I also serve as chair of the Task Force's Policy and Regulatory Committee, and that's what I'm going to focus on here today. We've all realized how complicated the regulatory framework is for farm to school, whether you're a school food director or you're a producer. And what has been really helpful is our ability to retain law clerks who can do legal research on some of these complex and groundbreaking issues, but also the overlay with public health. Farm to school is both a legal regulatory challenge and a public health opportunity as well, because we want to increase fresh fruits and vegetables in the schools. So some of the things we've looked at, and Jane mentioned one of those, was the geographic preference guidance for local farmers and school food directors. Another thing that we've done is 50 state research, really looking at best practices, what is the legislative landscape around the country on farm to school related issues. So one of the things that we learned through doing this was a particular state doing incentive programs where school food directors could be paid and reimbursed for providing fresh local food in their school meals. So that's going to be something we're going to be researching in 2012. Other voices from the field have said, well, it's not just school food directors. We need to think about preference programs for perhaps state universities or other institutions like private hospitals. How can we work a preference program broader in to the food system, if you will? Okay, another issue is food safety regulations and the small farmer. We're going to be looking into, along with our other colleagues that are really working on the ground with farmers, what are some of the barriers that smaller farmers face in mastering and complying with that web of regulations on food safety. We're going to look at how other states are doing this. Are there any other models that facilitate small farmers' participation and at the same time secure safety, of course? Most broadly in 2012, we're going to look at the entire regulatory framework for farm to school. We're going to look at which agencies are involved, what are the statutory and regulatory requirements, and are these regulatory requirements confusing, overlapping, at times conflicting, and perhaps have some analysis and recommendations, because we know that people in the field struggle with this very, very confusing maze of regulations at times. I want to call your attention to an excellent source from the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. It's coprevent.org. We call it coprevent.org. So a number of these documents I've referenced here, the research, the 50-state scan, the questions and answers for geographic preference, they're on coprevent, and so it's a source I would urge you to go to. Andy mentioned briefly our information hub. We've become really aware of the need for a really comprehensive place, a one-stop shopping for people to use on the web, to connect all the different farm-to-school related projects, provide an opportunity for networking, provide well-organized and easy-to-access links to other websites, to other research, to learn about grant opportunities, upcoming conferences, and we're excited about developing an active Ask an Expert, where people that are practitioners in the state would be able to serve as a training team to help others ask and answer questions online. So this is being built through resources and technical assistance at the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. We expect it will be live at the end of March, and we are really, really grateful to the Colorado Farm to School Project, which Wendy and Lynn and Jim Dyer have all been a part of, and this excellent website that is going to be migrated into the new information hub. So we're very grateful for that. So for more information, please contact me with difficult, tricky questions. We appreciate it, and we know that's how Farm to School is going to be furthered.
Great. Thank you very much, Susan. For those who don't know, the Department of Public Health and Environment is a strategic partner of LiveWell Colorado, so Susan and I are on speed dial with one another as we work through the wide range of policy issues together, and it's great to have these partnerships. I'm going to focus for a second on the why it matters part of this webinar. For those who don't know, LiveWell Colorado is a very young organization. We're only about 3 years old, but we have a very rich history of partnerships and a lot of groundwork that was laid before us. And we were created actually more than 3 years ago, but not really staffed up until about 2.5 years ago. And we are committed entirely to reducing and preventing obesity among all Coloradans, with a focus on promoting healthy eating and active living in the places we live, work, learn, and play. And this is important because while people recognize that Colorado is the leanest state in the country among adults, we have the second fastest growing obesity rate among children. And that, hopefully the children are going to grow up to be adults, which means those numbers are going to be higher as well. So we recognize that working with children and trying to stem this problem and preventing it is certainly a lot easier than reducing it, as I think many of us who have experienced trying to shed those extra pounds and get into healthier lifestyles. We really want to start with the kids. And on top of that, school is really the only opportunity for a healthy meal for many of Colorado's children. So that just puts greater focus on the importance of healthy meals for kids in school. One of the things that LiveWell Colorado has done is step back from the work that we've been doing around school food and really came up with our vision for what we really want school food to look like in Colorado. And our vision touches on both students and staff. We recognize staff as being role models for students and the importance of that. And we recognize that it's important that kids not only have to and the staff have access to the food, which is a lot of what Farm to School is about, is making sure that we're getting those fresh local foods into the schools, but also that kids are choosing them. And Farm to School also addresses that by creating demands and building those relationships between kids and farmers and helping them really learn where their food comes from. Unfortunately, we've seen such a disconnect in our culture from food and where food comes from. And too many children think it comes from the grocery store or a vending machine or McDonald's or other restaurants that don't understand really where carrots come from. You might see carrots already cut and ready for you and don't understand that they come from the ground. So we see that as being a key piece in getting kids to choose the food, healthy food in school. For us, healthy food, we've really kind of boiled down our definition of healthy food because we could have long debates over that. And to us, it's retaining the highest possible nutritional value in everything that we serve to kids. And that means it's minimally processed, they're minimal salt, sugars, and fats, and that we maximize fresh or frozen fruits and vegetables. So I kind of alluded to the supply and demand side of school food, and we've really focused our efforts on both of those. Lynn mentioned at the beginning the Colorado Farm to School Primer, which really is a resource to help really both of those pieces. It helps to inform what we mean by helping students and schools and farmers all connect, and producers all connect with one another to increase healthy food in schools. So if you haven't already looked at that, I encourage you to go out to our website and take a look. Another resource that we have that's a little more supply side focused is a new tool that we launched in a webinar in January. I can't keep track, there's been an awful lot recently. But it's the Healthy Eating Active Living Library. And this is a searchable online collection of codes, ordinances, regulations, policies, and other tools designed to help communities create environments that support access to healthy eating and active living. And there are a few components within this that apply to school food today, and it's our intention in 2012 to increase our focus on those codes that may be helpful in either at a school level, district level, or within the community environment to help support Farm to School. Another key area for us is our culinary programs. And this was alluded to a little bit before in terms of it's not just getting the food to the school, but the schools need to know how to prepare them. And a lot of our kitchen school staff have sort of spent the past few years or decades with more of a heat the food and serve the food as opposed to actually having to prepare and cook it. And that's just been another symptom of our culture. And so we've had the great privilege of being able to educate a vast number of kitchen staff, both at the school food service director level as well as individual kitchen staff, to help them learn everything from knife skills to really food math and menu planning and a number of things that I believe Andy touched on earlier, and really giving those tools hands-on to folks who are doing the work in the school. So we see that as being an essential piece. The bottom really hits, let's see, the LiveWell Moms gets a little bit more onto our demand side. The LiveWell Mom program is a program we started last year as part of our Culture Change campaign as a way to engage moms who want to help drive the movement of access to healthy food and active living. And we're really focused on having moms who are educated to be good advocates for their kids in a way that's really useful so that they can work with schools. And so through that network, we have guest bloggers and really welcome anybody to join that group, but see that as a key venue in which we can help promote the changes that are needed. The LiveWell communities, we have about 22 funded communities around the state that do working with coalitions in their respective communities on healthy eating and active living. And every one of these coalitions is involved in school wellness in one way or another. It is the most common strategy we see I think for some pretty obvious reasons. And in a number of those communities, we've seen a lot of work with Farm to School and the advancement of that. So it's great to see. It really does provide sort of a place that supply and demand can come together. And the last program that I want to mention is Go Slow Whoa, which is a pure education and marketing program that is administered at the school level that is really a way in which to identify those foods that kids should eat the most of to the least of. We really believe in not banning any food from kids or saying anything's always forbidden. There are times for treats and there are times for healthy foods, and making sure that kids understand what those healthy foods are and that they're eating more of those. And that's really the objective of that program. One of the great things about it is it's a well-researched program and the materials are available online for anyone to use. So I do encourage you to look out at that. To really execute the program in a really complete way, there is an evaluation component, and that's where some costs start to come up with it. But it is a resource that people can start looking at. So I mentioned that we'll be giving you links to all of the different resources that we've mentioned. LiveWellColorado.org and ColoradoFarmToSchool.org are two of the central places, as well as the coprevent.org, where you're going to see a lot of cross-referencing of one another. And there are also a few shortcuts that I've listed here. And to get the kind of, as the stories are going along, and depending on what your role is, having case studies and success stories and quick little tips, I encourage you to visit us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter, because that's one of the ways in which we're able to share not just what we're doing, but what some of our partners are doing and some of the exciting ways to move this work forward. That's enough for me. Next up, and our last speaker, is Wendy Peters-Muschetti, who's going to talk a little more specifically about getting involved in the Farm to School movement. Wendy?
Hi, everybody. This is Wendy, and I will try to be brief, but showcase some sort of exciting next steps and tools and resources that Colorado Farm to School will be using over the next coming months. So the first slide, just to wave, you did see my email up there. Cindy did mention we do staff the Food Systems Advisory Council. As Lynn and Susan also mentioned, we also are part of the Colorado Farm to School team with Jim Dyer and Kathleen. So you have my email. You can reach out to me either around the Food Systems Advisory Council or Colorado Farm to School. And that's okay. You can move to the next slide. So just to flag a few upcoming events. This is, as we said at the beginning, we're in the middle of a pretty lengthy and rich webinar series between Colorado Farm to School and LiveWell Colorado. We do want to flag that we are going to try to host these monthly very consistently. We are shooting to have one in late February. Dates and presenters TBD, so keep your eyes and ears open. But we'd really like to use this time of year to highlight some successful bid processes between local producers and school districts. As Jane mentioned briefly today, and she went into in detail at last Friday's Connecting Local Farms and Schools conference, there's a lot of new guidance out around this geographical preference and how to apply it. And we want to use this next webinar with producers and the school district to actually show specific contracts that were put in place. What does a successful bid actually look like, both from defining it as a producer and receiving it as a school district, and how do you actually apply this geographic preference when it comes to actually writing it into your bid or your contract. Other webinars that you should look forward to, we would like to do a series of webinars really showcasing school gardens, using school garden produce in your cafeteria, as well as youth farmers markets. Lots of folks on this webinar probably know that Slow Food Denver next Friday, over a week and a half from now, we'll be having an all-day conference showcasing their work around youth farmers markets and school gardens, and we'll be following up on that, bringing some of the information statewide later, March and beyond, through more webinars. So keep your eyes and ears open for consistent webinars, and please, again, contact us with any requests, ideas, recommendations, needs for this series. So next slide. One other resource and process we'd like to flag for you is that we have just launched yesterday a survey that can be shared widely across the state to really collect nominations for Farm to School champions. You'll see the survey link on this slide. It's pretty easy to remember. If you don't note it down here or don't get it on the webinar later when it's on the website, feel free to just email me your nominations. Again, you see my email address here. We're really looking for nominations for folks that are maybe sort of those unsung heroes of Farm to School, those folks that maybe are a little bit more behind the scenes but are really critical to a driving force and a passionate force around Farm to School. So maybe there's a student that's really championed the school garden, or a mom or a dad that just was like driving the force behind the school district wellness policy to integrate local foods, or a classroom teacher that has gone above and beyond in integrating, education about where your food comes from into their classroom, curriculum. So, or maybe there's a superintendent that's just championed this the whole time and really supported his or her faculty. So those are the kind of folks we're looking for. Please send us your nominations just as soon as you can, and we'll be using some of those nominations to do more work, like more case studies, and really showcase and highlight these champions. So the last slide we have here is just to remind you again, you've seen some of this information already, where you can go to contact us and more information, coloradofarmtoschool.org. Also, LiveWell Colorado's website, as Lisa just walked you through, is rich with resources. And here you have every one of our email addresses that was on this webinar today. I think we're all pretty open and available for questions and comments, so please be in touch. And then we just like to kind of close it out before we give you some time for Q&A. We usually have an inspirational slide up here that we just like to, here it is, apologize. We just like to part with these words at every webinar. Those of you who've been with us have seen this every time. And this comes from our colleague Jim Dyer, to just remember to celebrate successes no matter how small. Keep striving for further excellence. And that's what we've learned, as in any great effort. That's how it all starts. Baby steps, small steps, it's going to get big pretty soon. So we're done, and I'll kick it back to LiveWell to facilitate questions and answers.
Thank you very much, Wendy. And I do want to remind everyone that to please send us your questions. You can type them into the questions box. And if you know who you want your question directed to, if you would please state that in your question. We don't have any questions submitted yet, but we will give it a couple of minutes to see if there are any that you have. And as I said at the beginning, we will be providing you with links to all of the different resources that we mentioned and all of the email addresses that Wendy just went over. And we will have this webinar posted on our website so that you can share it with others and reference back to the slides as you may be interested. So the first question that's come in, I think I'm going to direct to Jane. Yeah. Could you tell me if Farm to School is mandatory for all Colorado schools?
Absolutely, I can answer that for you. It is not mandatory for all Colorado schools. There are no federal or state regulations that mandate participation in Farm to School. It's very much encouraged, and we certainly are a partner in promoting.
Thank you. We'll give another minute for additional questions. Anybody else around the table have any other comments, things they forgot to share that they'd like to bring up or reiterate? Okay, we have it.
I tried to, can you hear me?
Yes.
I tried to type in a question. I wasn't able to put my cursor into the question box, but I did type in a source. What source are you using for your obesity statistics? I was just wanting for my own records. What is that, a national science?
The F is in Fat report from Robert Wood Johnson, and there are a number of other sources that I can get to you offline. So we have received a couple more questions now. The next one I'll answer that I think it's supposed to say who will be posting these webinars. The webinars will be at a minimum on LiveWell Colorado's website under, if you go to our website, LiveWell Colorado, and select Toolbox and then select Webinars. All of our webinars are provided there. In addition, you can easily find a list of all of these webinars and not have to scroll through our other topics if you go to coloradofarmtoschool.org. And we will, in addition, be providing a direct link in a follow-up email. So thank you for helping us remember to promote that. The next question we have is, I think, to Jane again. Will we be able to use DoD dollars for local produce?
The Department of Defense dollars, that is another state agency that's managed by USDA Foods, Commodities, and Human Services. And my understanding is the DoD program does purchase local produce when it's available. Specific items or products I do not know of, but certainly we can look into this further.
Susan, feel free to share. What's kind of neat here is, well, it's one of those challenges of the number of agencies that are involved in all this, but what's great in Colorado is that we're seeing all these agencies work together. So I'm going to hand it over to Susan to fill in here as well.
And just to add to what Jane said, regarding that document on school food procurement and geographic preference, it does appear that the Department of Defense Fresh program can apply a geographic preference. So they are involved in purchasing fresh fruits and vegetables. And please see that guidance for further detail.
Thank you, Susan and Jane. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. So with that, I want to thank everybody for being on the call today. And we look forward to seeing all the great work that's being done around the state and encourage you to celebrate those unsung heroes through the link that Wendy has provided. And again, we'll send that out to you. So thanks, everybody, and have a great day.